Hey everyone, we've just got back from the ag supplier in town because we need to fertilize the trees. So coming up for springtime at the moment here in the tropics, and we've just had a few days of really heavy rain, but now that seems to have subsided a little bit. Now just showers forecast for the next few days, so we need to get some fertilizer out. So we've just gone and picked up this chock manure, 1 ton bag. So a few busy days ahead for us getting this out, but this is organic fertilizer, so we try not to use chemical fertilizers if we can help it.
A lot of the chemical fertilizers, there's too much nitrogen in there, so we end up with big trees and no fruit on the trees.
Yeah.
Whereas this is, what are we? Nitrogen on the left, there's 4. So now we have to get this out. Going to have mussels.
That's the hard part. Going and picking it up is the easy part. Putting it all out on the trees is the hard part.
Yeah, but it's worth it.
Yeah, definitely.
And
so that's what we're up to today.
It lasts for a few months. It's slow release, so
yeah.
Although it's harder work putting it out than your chemical fertilizers.
And at the end of the day, we stink of chock poo. It's lovely
So,
perfume.
but who eats chock poo?
Stumpy. That's also the hard part, is trying to get it out without Stumpy going around and eating it.
Really love him. Another reason why I hate trellising wires, because you can't get around your bloody trees.
No.
Right.
And also, if we didn't have the trellising, we could probably use a fertilizer spreader instead of doing this by hand.
Yeah, maybe, but at least this way I know exactly how much is going on each tree. Got it? Because that holds half a kilo.
And it keeps you fit.
Keeps the old ticker going well, hadn't we? But they're loaded, aren't they?
Yeah, we might have to come down and thin out again.
Yeah. Well, we need a proper prune now. Coming into September, take the height off and open them up properly.
Yeah. Another job.
I mean, look at this. It's everywhere. Everywhere.
Yeah, that's insane.
For the size of the tree.
Yeah. G'day everyone. Well, it is September, so we are now officially into spring. Winter has left us behind. Winter in the tropics goes in the blink of an eye. And as you know from our previous videos, we always do a winter jobs list, because winter is a good time in the tropics to try and get some of those really big labor intensive jobs out the way. Why winter? Because it's cooler. Generally, we get more dry days. This winter's been quite wet, as was last winter, which has made it a little bit tricky. But anyway, we did manage to get quite a few jobs done, but winter is a good time to do those things. Cooler, drier, so trying to do those big labor intensive jobs in the summertime would just be soul destroying, because it's just so hot, it's so humid. Plus in the winter we generally don't have too much going on in the way of harvest, so we're not having to stop to pick and pack and send fruit away. So it gives us time to really get stuck into those big jobs. Less mosquitoes, less flies. But yeah, winter has finished, we're into spring. It's starting to warm up here now, starting to get that little bit of humidity setting in. But we did really well with the jobs list. So we have a whiteboard on the fridge. Why is it on the fridge? Because then we have to look at it every single day. And that whiteboard had a list of winter jobs, which we've managed to get through quite well. So I'm going to just do a quick video just showing you how we went on with all those winter jobs. Okay, let's go. Okay, job number 1. This was probably the biggest out of all the jobs that were on our winter jobs list, but one that we really needed to get done. And that was to rip out all of the dragon fruits off the posts and the trellising. So you can see behind me, they are all now empty. That was huge. And it has its downsides and its benefits. So the downside to pulling all the dragon fruits out is that obviously we won't have a crop of dragon fruits this year to send away. So less money, I guess. And we have a whole heap now of empty trellises that technically you could say are non-productive. But the upside to that is that now we can replace all of that with jackfruits, which is more beneficial to us. And so sometimes you have to make those sacrifices to get the benefits in the long term. And we've never been ones to just keep plodding along because something's in and so we'll just keep going. If it's not working, if we can do it better, then we'll change it. And that might mean that we have 2 or 3 years where we have a whole load of space in the paddock that's non-productive, but we can see moving forward that that is going to be more beneficial for us in the long term. So yeah, they are all out, and not only did we pull them all out, but we also managed to chip them all back onto the trellises so that those nutrients are going back into the ground. So there we go. That was all our dragon fruit trellises and posts. And this is all the mulch from the dragon fruits that we chipped back onto the rows. And the other big job that we did was to get all of our jackfruit seedlings out onto the empty trellises, including these ones, so that we can graft them when they're big enough to graft. So even though these trellises now are technically non-productive from being productive, they are all planted up with jackfruit seedlings, and probably next year we will be able to field graft these and then grow them on. Okay, another winter job we had was to sort out this area next to the packing shed. Here we used to have a huge rain tree, and I spoke about this in a previous video. It was too close to structures, and the roots, which I'll show you in a second, of this rain tree are huge. And they were running all the way down to the house and to the packing shed, and we were having huge issues with plumbing. The roots were going into the pipes and, oh yeah, nightmare. And then all the leaves that come off the rain tree were filling up the guttering and causing mold on the surrounding structures. And so it had to go, unfortunately. It was a beautiful tree, but it did have to go. It was just way too close and causing too many problems. The good thing that came out of it was that we got a huge slab, which is in the house drying, and hopefully next year or the year after, one of our winter jobs will be to sand it down and turn it into our new dining table, which will just be amazing. The guy that cut it down, his friend also took away quite a few rain tree slabs as well, so it didn't go to waste. It's a shame that it had to come down, but it did. And so we were left, this area here was just filled with all the remnants of the rain tree that weren't utilised for slabbing. So a lot of branches and so on and so on. This area was quite a mess before that anyway. So we've had to try and sort all of that out. So for the last 2 weeks, we have had a fire, and we never thought that we would get through the amount of material that we had here to burn, but we have, despite having had some quite heavy rain that we thought was going to put the fire out. It didn't. So it's still going, and we're down to the last few logs now that we've just got to burn. But yeah, you can see, I'll show you here the roots. So that was where the rain tree was. We're trying to burn the stump of that so that it doesn't keep reshooting, because it will. So that's the intention there. But the roots, the roots are huge. The video probably doesn't do them justice really, but the roots are huge. And that one, as you can see, is traveling towards the house. And this one will give you a good idea. Look at that. So that's what we were having to deal with, those big roots. So yeah, we're pretty pleased with how we've done trying to clear this area. We've still got a little bit more to go. We've still got some bits and pieces to burn. We've got some fallen palms up there that we've got to chop up and get out the road. And we've got quite a lot of metal work that we need to get rid of from previous equipment that we never really found use for, that were laying around on the farm. So that's all got to go. The problem there is that we need the trailer, and the trailer is full of a 1-ton bag of fertilizer. So this is where, when you have a jobs list, you've kind of got to prioritize what's more important and what can you do depending on the weather and what you've got available, and so on and so on. So this pile of junk will have to wait until the trailer is free so that we can get rid of all of that. So the plan, when we have cleared all of this area, is to extend the packing shed out so that we've got more cover. But that may end up being a next winter job, because we are definitely running out of time to do those big projects. So we might have to just make do with what we've got for this picking season, and then it will get transferred to next winter's job to extend the packing area so that we've got somewhere, more area to store equipment out of the elements, and just better area to load the produce, I suppose, out of the weather. Just give us more space. But we had to clear this to be able to do that, so that's why it's ended up on the bottom of the jobs list, and we've just run out of time. But that's okay. We've done a huge job here. Our little fire is starting to get going. It's early morning here, so we just came up and try to just get it going again. So hopefully we can do that. And I think Ian will divorce me if I put any more potatoes on that fire. Seriously, for the last 2 weeks. What are we having for dinner? Jacket potatoes. They're in the fire. It's been great. So every day I've come up and I've put a couple of potatoes wrapped in foil into the hot coals, sort of about 11 o'clock. And then about 12:30, it's been jacket potatoes with cheese, jacket potatoes with beans, jacket potatoes with chili con carne, jacket potatoes with leftover chicken curry. It's all good. Jacket potatoes, so versatile. They go with everything. And straight out of the fire, delicious. So, but I came home yesterday with a big bag of locally grown potatoes from the Tablelands, and Ian just looked at them and said, "Don't even think about giving me more jacket potatoes." So I think I'm going to have to think of something else for lunch. Another thing we did this winter, which was not on the list, was to paint the house. So the house was looking pretty grotty on the outside. It hadn't been painted for years. And so we, as in I, decided it would be a good idea to renovate the outside. There's still some work to do. We've still got some painting left to do because the rain came in and it was extremely difficult to get the paint to dry. So we had to come away from that. So there is still some work to do, but most of the large portion of it is done. Ian is not so happy that it was not on the jobs list because, you know, when you have a list, and the best part about having a list is being able to cross things off it. Well, this was one huge job that he couldn't cross off because it was never on there in the first place. It almost gets to the point where you want to write it on just so you can have the satisfaction of crossing it off. That's the good thing about lists, being able to cross off the jobs. So all in all, we did quite well with the winter jobs list. It doesn't sound like a lot when you say it out loud, but those jobs were very time consuming. Pulling the dragon fruits out and chipping them all back onto the rows took a long time. But you know, that will be good for us in the upcoming seasons because having the dragon fruits, they were so labor intensive that it took us away from being able to manage the jackfruits, and ultimately that's what our crop is going to be. So we couldn't really keep going with that and manage the jackfruits well. So we are glad that we got round to taking the dragon fruits out, but that was a huge job. And then planting up all the jackfruits in those empty trellises ready for grafting next year. Slowly burning away that old rain tree area so that hopefully next year we can extend the packing shed out. And the only other thing that I wanted to show you, obviously in between all of those big jobs, we still had the mowing, the fertilizing, the spraying, the pruning. So they sort of slot in between those big jobs. And of course painting the house, which was not on the list. But I just wanted to bring you down and show you our veggie gardens, which we did. We had some success and we had some failures. Like I said, we had quite a wet winter this year, so we didn't do too well with our beetroots. They all rotted, and the zucchinis aren't going so well either. But we did have some success, we did have some failures, and that's all you can do in the tropics, unfortunately. So I'll show you the garden beds. This was the corn bed. I planted tomatoes in here around the corners in the hopes that they would grow up these posts. But what I didn't factor in at the time was that this area is quite heavily shaded by this massive bamboo that we have. That's another job, but we won't talk about that. Bamboo is a swear word in this house. So I planted the tomatoes in here to grow up against these posts, but unfortunately they're probably so heavily shaded that even though the plants are growing well and they do have tomatoes on them, the tomatoes, unfortunately, are not colouring up because there's just no sunlight getting in. That combined with the fact that we have had quite a wet winter, so we haven't had as many sunny days as what we normally would get in the winter. The other sad part about this garden bed is that down here, rats got underneath. So we thought that this was pest proof when we built it, but now we're going to probably have to run wire mesh around into the ground because rats have dug underneath and they got in here and they have just decimated our corn. That is really sad. I managed to rescue some of the corn, but mostly the rats have just had a field day in this garden bed. So that is very sad. Very sad. We also had some problems with some of the cabbages that we planted. They got some grubs in them, although the ones in this bed seem to be doing really well, so that's quite odd. I don't know if it was because the bok choy that we planted in this bed started to get attacked by pests and then they just moved over. That's probably what happened. But in this bed, these ones seem to be doing really well. So hopefully we do get a couple of cabbages. The spring onions have done brilliantly, so I've just planted more of those because we can pretty much grow them year round. So they should do quite well. So spring onions, the cucumber, I had a second cucumber here that was pretty much covering that trellis, and we pulled so many cucumbers off it, but it has given up the ghost. So we've got a new cucumber vine going there. I've got some beans going over here, and they seem to be doing well finally, so we'll grow them up that trellis in. And we have lots and lots of carrots, which is so good. And we're making chicken casserole for dinner tonight, so we are going to be pulling up some of these beauties. We didn't really thin them out. We probably should have done, but we just left them, and we've just been pulling out what we need. So sometimes we get big carrots, sometimes we get baby carrots. It's all good. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that they are homegrown fresh carrots, and they are deliciously sweet. So I'll be pulling some of those out later to put in the chicken casserole. And eventually we will probably have to pull them out and put them in the crisper or freeze them. But for now, they're still doing okay in the ground. And of course, chilies. Lots and lots of chilies. Love chilies. The leeks didn't do so well. I don't know why. Maybe too hot for them. And the pumpkin vine is also doing not too bad. At the moment, we've got 4 pumpkins growing off this vine. And I just keep coming out and hand pollinating the flowers. Seems like that's what I've had to do this year. But that's okay. They're not ready to pick yet. This is another job that we may get around to this summer. If not, it will have to be carried over as well. But this was where we had that huge weed tree, the African tulip, came down in a storm. Ian spoke on a previous video about it. And so we've got to clear all of that. It's just a huge mess now as well. But it's kind of not in our way. So that's why we tackled the rain tree area first, because that's right next to the packing shed, which we want to extend. So that was the priority. This one can be done, I don't know, whenever we get around to it, I suppose. And then that tree that you can see there, which Ian talked about as well in another video, it was impacted by the falling tree, so now it is leaning. It will have to come down, but that will need to be on a dry day, and we'll take both of us because we're going to have to guide it away from our jackfruit trees, which I'm standing in amongst at the moment, so we don't want it coming this way. We need it to fall over there. Would be perfect. So once we've done that, then we can start and clear up all of this area here. There's always something. Never ever think in farming that you're going to get through your jobs list. You won't. And the sooner that you realize that, the more at peace you will be. I used to really want to get through the jobs list. We had to do everything. And now I realize that you just never will, because there's always something happening that one job takes over another. That's just the way it is. So yeah, we'll get to it one day. But for now, the next priority for us is to continue with pruning and thinning out our current jackfruit trees, ready for the next season, which will start in a couple of months. Well, that pretty much wraps up our winter jobs list. That was pretty much what I wanted to go through with you guys, just a quick update on how we got along and where we're at on the farm. But I just wanted to say thank you to every single one of you that watches our videos and likes, shares, subscribes. It really means a lot to us, and we hope that you enjoy watching our videos just as much as we enjoy making them. If there is anything that you particularly want to see us do, just leave us a comment down below, and hopefully we can put it in one of our future videos. But for now, I hope you have a great day, weekend, evening, wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you next time. Bye.